I think it's working. I think it's on.
It's on, Debbie.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're so happy you're here. We have a special guest today, this nice, beautiful, hot Friday as we get ready for Shabbat here in Dallas, Texas. We have Rabbi Dan Utley with us.
Hello, Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Applause, applause, applause. We're so excited. We haven't had a guest on the Shabbos show before. This is a first for us, and very honored. What an honored guest. Makes us feel wonderful. And the topic today, if you might be able to guess from what you can see on our table, is the shofar and the sacred sounds of the shofar. So, let's see, we have a few of them. Big ones, small ones. Barry's is back there. He's had that well before I ever knew him. Another really pretty one. And Rabbi Utley, you have one today.
That's right. Yep, this was a gift to me from the Leo Beck Temple in Los Angeles, California, when I was a rabbinic intern. So I've kept this with me, and it's my favorite shofar to play.
And at some point today, before we leave, you're going to be playing it.
Yes, yeah, at a safe distance. Don't worry.
That's right. And we had thought that Rabbi Utley might have, oh, my mask is kind of keeps falling down, new little things that we overcome, right, during all of this. We knew that Rabbi Utley would have some wonderful things to add concerning the shofar and the sacred sounds of the shofar. So, Rabbi Utley, take it away.
All right, well, thanks for inviting me. It's beautiful to be here in your backyard, and Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I think it's great to look at the shofar now, because we have some time to get some perspective on this object and what it symbolizes and the sound that it makes. Here we are several weeks away from the month of Elul, which will start a month out from Rosh Hashanah, so not until end of August time. So we'll be able to prepare ourselves. That's sort of the theme that we're talking about at Temple, at least, is all of the work of preparation that we need to do for the holidays this year, and that we should have been doing every year, but this year will be so much more on each of us, given that we're not going to be together in the same space for the holidays. So I learned to blow the shofar when I was in high school, and then blew the shofar for my congregation when I was growing up in Cleveland. So it's something that's been special for me. I was a trombone player, still am, so that's where it was easy for me to learn the same technique, like a brass instrument, to blow the shofar. And I think like the big teaching piece that I would bring to us about the shofar is that the mitzvah of shofar is not the action of blowing the shofar, it's the action of listening directly to the sound of the shofar. The blessing is lishmoa, to hear, kol shofar, the voice of the shofar. And so in order to fulfill that mitzvah on the holidays, is that you actually have to hear the sound directly from the shofar. You can't hear it resonate off of the building or echoing out of the sanctuary or over the radio. You actually have to hear the direct sound of the shofar. And the idea behind that Maimonides and others expand upon, is that it's representing, symbolizing God's voice at Sinai, which was heard by each and every Israelite, both present, past, and future, and directly into their hearts, penetrating their hearts and their souls. And there was no echo. The text says that there was no echo of God's voice at Sinai. And you could read that and you could say, well, maybe God's voice wasn't very strong, and so it didn't echo off of the mountains and other places. But the rabbis interpreted that it meant that it went directly into everyone's hearts, and so it didn't resound amongst the valleys and the hills and the mountains. And so the shofar represents that. Rosh Hashanah is called Yom Teruah, the day of the sounding of the shofar. It's also called Yom HaZikaron, the day of remembrance, and the New Year. But it's that day that we recognize that Sinai moment and try to access that same connection and depth and deep listening. So the sound is supposed to go directly into your hearts.
I have a couple questions, because you probably know this. Why the heck do we use a ram's horn? I mean, we're in Texas, and we have longhorns here in Texas, right? And so I'm wondering, why wouldn't we use a cow horn instead of a ram's horn?
It's a good question, Barry. So it comes from a kosher animal. Ram is a kosher animal. And I think partly for practical reasons, an animal that was around and very much part of the agricultural life of the Israelites was convenient to use, but also harkens back to the story of the binding of Isaac. Because when Abraham listened to God's voice, following God's voice to bring his son Isaac up the mountain, and was asked to bind him there, and it seemed that he would sacrifice his son. Of course, we read this Torah portion on the high holidays. And then there was the ram that appeared in the thicket, and then was the sacrifice to God instead of his son, of course. Lots of ways to read that story and lots of messages, but that symbol is carried forth in the ram's horn.
We're not supposed to work on Shabbat, but we seem to, if it comes on Shabbat and we have to blow the shofar, how do we get away around that?
Well, usually in our community in Elul, it's still usually light outside. We've begun Shabbat services. We usually do it before lighting the candles. It's the very first thing when we walk into the sanctuary. Just after the opening melody, we sound the shofar, and then we mark the beginning of Shabbat by lighting the candles. So we are playing a little bit flexible with our gathering there. It's before sundown. But you're right. Traditionally, in observant communities, you wouldn't blow the shofar on Shabbat. And so our blowing of shofar on Erev Rosh Hashanah, actually, is a little bit unusual, especially if Erev Rosh Hashanah falls on Shabbat. Many communities don't sound the shofar then. We sound it on Shabbat, on Rosh Hashanah day. And we do as well. But I think that we bring it out for each Friday during Elul, the month before the high holidays, because we want to be tuning into and bringing that intention into our prayer and preparing ourselves that this is a different time, that this is a multiple weeks that lead up to the holidays.
That is so informative.
Yeah.
I got to ask Debbie, why in the world did we talk about shofar today? The high holidays are like 3 months away.
Because like everyone, we're preparing our home and we're preparing our hearts for the high holy days. And we were feeling that we have a little bit of extra time. And because of what Rabbi Utley was saying we want to hear the shofar. It's not simply, to pull this up a little more, it's not simply something that we're commanded or something that we must carry through, but I yearn to hear it, don't you? And I find that the blowing of the shofar and the sounds and tekiah and all of the beauty, children want to come running into the sanctuary. It's just naturally joyous for all of us, all of the generations. And if I'm not going to be at my home, Temple Emmanuel, or if I'm not going to have the privilege of being at Beth Torah or Shereth Israel or Tiferet or wherever I might go, I still want to hear that. And I was thinking that we still have enough time to gather ourselves a shofar and learn how to blow it for ourselves. That's right. Be able to hear it and to be able to enjoy it. And I know you were a trombone player because we've talked about, we both have experience with work with bands. And you may have a band student who'd be particularly terrific at blowing the shofar. And I know there's bound to be YouTube videos, and I think we're going to get a small sampling from you, Rabbi Utley.
For sure. And at Temple Emmanuel, anybody who wants to can reach out to John Karp, who's our coordinator of our shofar corps. And there will be opportunities. We're working out the details, but there will be opportunities to come in person in a safe place. Maybe it's in the parking lot at Temple, or maybe we're bringing the shofar out into the neighborhoods. We're still figuring out the logistics of that. But there will be time for us to actually hear that sound as opposed to watching it just over the video on services or hearing a recording, because it's important to hear that call. So hopefully throughout the month of Elul and leading up to the days of the Yamim Noraim, we'll have that opportunity to hear the shofar call in person.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
If it is, come on, I tried it. It's not that hard.
Can you do it, Barry?
No, not very well. But I tried it earlier.
He was practicing all morning, all morning.
I needed John Carp here. Where's John Carp? I need him. But are there any techniques that you can help teach people right now?
Well, I mean, given the concern for the virus, I think I would want to be safe around you, but it does involve, puckering your lips and buzzing your lips like you would for playing a brass instrument.
Right.
So blowing raspberries, as it were. So we have to be very careful about that because it does spread particles. So I won't demonstrate that out in the open here, but I will when you're ready. You can let me know and we'll go over the calls.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking about yoga and meditation. I always try to bring a mindfulness piece in. And I was thinking about my chimes a lot with all of the shofar talk. And I end or I conclude every meditation with a sounding of the chimes that I want to show you. These are the chimes I use no matter what yoga class I teach, mindfulness, meditation. And I find that it's just beautiful the way we all wait for the sound. And there's just this moment where we're all gathered together in the present moment and we hear the sound, regardless of what the practice was. And that's really special. Every day, every time that I get to ding those chimes and we all connect together. And that is really special, but it's nothing compared to the resonance and the energy of a shofar. I mean, that's, and so one reason I think that we're all so still at that moment is we can just feel that no one's thinking about their to-do list when the shofar is blown. No one's thinking about where they're gonna have dinner or what's for dinner after this. We're all just tuned in and very sensitive to the beauty and the nature. And maybe, what you were saying, Rabbi Utley, just tuned into the heart and how deeply that sound goes into the heart. So I know I'd like to hear it.
For sure. And actually, when you were just sharing the chime here for a moment, I was thinking about how, like, all of the clergy at Temple have been working very hard with our staff and lay leaders to think about how do we help empower our congregation to do the preparation work at home, especially since we aren't going to be in the sanctuary for services in person. That having a shofar or having a chime or some sound. I mean, I think for the high holidays, the shofar is the right sound. It's actually not that hard to learn to do it, especially if you purchase a shofar that has a rounder. Maybe I'll show this here.
Oh yeah, go up close.
Right, a round mouthpiece like this that actually is a little bit larger and easier to.
Let's see. Can they see it?
I think so. To be able to fit your mouth in, and anybody who can blow raspberries and produce fast air. You have to have fast-moving air to produce the sound, could use this at your own home to help set the intention and hear that sound with your family, to be able to prepare. And even if we are going to be watching the service on a screen, participating, the sound, the tactile experience of holding a prayer book, as opposed to just putting it on a table or looking at it on an iPad, but really holding a prayer book in your hands, the machzor, to have the challah and the candles and the apples and honey right there to create your own sanctuary, sort of like you set up this space. The sound and all of those experiences help us open our hearts in prayer. And we get so much from our sanctuary of being together normally with people surrounding us, singing, producing those sounds together, hearing the organ and the choir and the cantors. But here we are going to be at home, so we have to use other things in our toolbox to prepare that space. And sound, a real live sound of a shofar can be one of those things. So I would encourage people to look up YouTube videos, how to blow the shofar. There are lessons out there. Call us, we can help you, and you can get one for not that much money and be able to have it at home and hear that sound as well. So
May I give a plug for Kay Schachter?
For sure.
Called her this afternoon, and I said, listen, we're doing the Shabbos show. What if folks would like to have their own? Can they, how can we do this? And she said that they are going to be doing curbside, and it's really about emailing her and letting her know what you need. And they have plenty of shofars, they say. And once you said that, I wanted to hand you this one because this one doesn't look as round.
No, right? It's more oblong, right? I can show that on the camera.
Yeah.
Right, but there's still enough space there, and you can kind of turn it in different directions to get it to fit your lips in whatever way you'd like, that feel most comfortable, and that'll most easily produce the sound. So there's four major calls that the shofar has. There's the tekiah call, which is one long blast. We're used to that. Then there's the shavarim, which means broken sounds. That's the 3 broken sounds. And then there's the 9 short blasts, teruah, which remind us of conflict and difficulty and struggle. And we have 9 of those tones. And then, of course, the tekiah gedolah, the longer call, that really is where you feel that open up your heart at the time. So would you like me to do some of these calls? What would you like?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Okay,
So
we're going to stand back.
they'll stand back.
We'll stand back. We're over
Maybe
here.
you want to give the call?
Let's see.
Tekiah.
Tekiah.
Okay.
Okay. We'll see how this goes.
Wow.
That's tekiah.
Teruah.
Teruah.
Shavarim.
Shavarim. Right.
Tekiah gedolah.
Wow.
There you go.
That is just phenomenal.
I get shivers with that.
Isn't that phenomenal?
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Aren't we so lucky that Rabbi Utley said, yes, I will come and do this with you?
Absolutely.
So lucky.
Okay, Rabbi Utley, we have a couple things we have to do. One
Okay.
thing, Debbie, I thought last week you were decorating. We were decorating some stuff with shells on it.
And
it looks different.
This totally piggybacks on what Rabbi Utley was saying with space and decorating and making these sacred spaces places of worship that you feel connected as you would if you were in a sanctuary. So I wanted to work on candlesticks since it's the summer. I did show you last week that I had glass candlesticks, but alas, that did not work out. I learned that the hot glue really pulled apart too easily. The whole thing didn't work out. So I got these new nifty candlesticks, and they're wood. And wood is just a better surface, and I'll show you up close. I'm only mostly done with one, but not quite done. But I've been working on this shell art, really thinking about the season and the summer, and I have to tell you, it really mindfully takes me to all of the beautiful nature that God has provided and all of the creations. So beautiful. So these are all shells all over the candlestick done with hot glue. I'm not done yet. It needs another good layer, but it is definitely a work in progress that I'm just loving.
It got me through 3 episodes of Kaminsky Method to watch her do this. And what's going on with the challah? Challah?
The challah is rising out here in about 100 and something degrees for social distancing purposes and outside. Wow. But the challah is not beautiful. Complaining about how warm it is out here. I'll tell you that. Hold on. Do I see Gary Kahalnik? I wonder where the shells come from. Gary Kahalnik says, by the way, since he perked up.
Gary Kahalnik.
Do you have something to say about Gary Kahalnik?
Let me try to think about him. Gary Kahalnik, a friend of the community. Gary Kahalnik is joining us next week as our guest. He's greatly involved, as everyone knows, in the community with Israel Bonds.
Right.
And he's going to discuss how Israel Bonds is going to be involved with the high holidays.
Oh, awesome.
And just educate us on the state of Israel.
That's true, too.
Oh, my gosh, there's so much going on right now.
Yes, and Gary is so connected to all that, and he's really easy to learn from. I love learning with Gary.
Oh, that brings me one thing. I'm embarrassed to do this stuff, but to talk about this week's Torah portion, Rabbi Utley.
No, please.
Well, this week is Pinchas, and Pinchas Pinchas is in numbers, and numbers is a lot about numbers. And one thing I've noticed about that you'll recognize in this week's Torah portion, one thing is about the law of inheritance, and not only do men receive law inheritance in according to the Torah, but also women are now, because 5 daughters fought for it, and they won. But the thing that I found most interesting about this week's Torah portion is they talk about the census, another census, and it turns out that there's 601,730 people between the ages of 20 and 60 years old of Israelites at this particular time. And what I find interesting is that I am so numbers fatigued. Last night we were looking at how many people are affected with COVID. How many horrible people were, the thousands of people have passed away or are sick from COVID. And one thing I've noticed about the numbers is that we learn in this portion is that each of those numbers represent a human being. And just like it used to be told that if there is a recession is something that happens to your friend, or a depression is happens to yourself or your own family. And I find that we kind of get numbers fatigued also, because each one of those numbers reflects how a family is affected by this one person. Not 179,000, not 159,000, not 2 million people, one person, because that's all that matters. And I think that it's important that we remember how valuable one single life is. And that's my take on Pinchas.
Very nice.
That's your co-op.
Very nice.
Thank you. Okay, where do we go from here?
Before we go, with great gratitude to Rabbi Utley.
I'm grateful to be here in your beautiful backyard, and thanks for standing out in the heat so that we could do this together.
Such a wonderful thing to be with our friends. I wanted to show y'all my necklace I'm wearing today, because we were talking about standing at the foot of Mount Sinai. So believe it or not, I have this little teeny tiny Moses necklace. And I just wanted to show it to you today, just because I like to do a few little regular things. Hi, Geeta. Hi, Ruth. Hi, Lolly. Well,
Rabbi Lee, this is such a pleasure.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thanks for inviting me.
Now, are you working tomorrow morning?
Yes, I'll be at Shabbat services tomorrow morning, 10:30. We have services tonight via Facebook Live. Tomorrow morning, Zoom meeting. And tomorrow, we'll have a bar mitzvah student. Bar mitzvah, young man named Maury, who is from Dublin, Ireland.
oh, yes.
There-
That's
yes.
Rosin's
Hi, laddie.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. And Maury and his brother Rafi have both had their bar mitzvahs with Temple. They're relatives of the Bryn family,
Right.
longtime members of Temple and great contributors in many ways, the choir and other places. And they do not have a Reformed community by them in Dublin, and so they've joined Temple Emmanuel several years ago. And Maury has studied. He goes to a Jewish day school, but it's Orthodox Jewish day school, and he wanted to have a bar mitzvah in a Reformed context, and so he'll be joining us over Zoom for his bar mitzvah tomorrow morning.
Phenomenal.
Yeah,
That's terrific.
a lot of fun.
Thank you. Sounds like you're going to be busy.
Yes, it's been a busy summer. We're already cooking, as it were, on all the high holiday plans, and anyone who's involved in Temple Emmanuel should take a look at the August window that will come out in a few weeks, and it will be giving a lot of information on ways to stay connected for the holidays. We have great things to come, including special preparing and participating kits that are going to be given to everybody in the congregation to help guide us through the high holiday season. So don't worry, it's going to be different, but there's new opportunities coming with us this year as well. So, thank
Rabbi
you.
Utley, can you feel why we love doing this?
I
Can't
do.
you just feel everybody right out there?
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Wonderful transition to Shabbat. Thank you to everyone who joined us.
Yes, thank you. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom, Debbie.
Shabbat Shalom, Barry. Mwah. Bye, everyone.